Opposed, Nicole.
Colonial.
Perfect. Ninth, Robert Blake. DJ Anderson.
Aaron Bear.
And I see Marie in the hall, out there. Okay. And Randy is not feeling well, and the doctor told him to stay home, and no, it's not COVID-19. It's some sort of plague. But he is just fine.
Sure.
All right. Is she coming in? Okay. Great. I'll go right to the motion here. Agenda revisions. I'm being heard. We move on to approval of board minutes for February 10th.
And I second.
Move and second to approve the minutes of February 10th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All right. Approval of the board workshop minutes of February 27th. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, abstain. That's done. Now we have a student, a highly educated student, I understand, to do our student representative report. Brian?
Hi, my name is Ryan Escarino. I'm your guys' ASB Vice President. I'm excited to share a board update from our student leadership. Since our last board update, we've been busy marketing for prom as well as making progress with the planning of Mr. Dornbecker pageant that will be taking place in May. We also have been in contact with the district middle school and are planning an activity night fundraiser to help raise money towards the pageant. We also been busy making winter sports senior posters as well as celebrating our boys basketball team making it in playoffs. Our ski team and snowboard team also made their own state competitions, and we are excited to hear about their rankings as they compete on the slopes. Leadership also had the opportunity to meet and speak with Mr. Bear. We discussed over some future stuff of the leadership. Big important dates are coming up. March 18th, the Mr. Dornbecker boys will tour the Dornbecker Hospital. There is also a 8th grade night coming up. April 4th will be prom at the Crystal Ballroom. April 16th, Dornbecker Assembly. And then May 2nd, Mr. Dornbecker pageant. And keep an eye out for Mr. Dornbecker contestants, as our goal this year is to raise at least a total of $24,000. With that being said, my name is Ryan Escarino. My phone number is 503-730-1140, and I would love your help raising money towards this wonderful cause. I am the next Mr. Dornbecker.
All right. Any questions for Ryan? If you've never been to Mr. Dornbecker, you are missing a treat. That's all I can tell you. It is great. You know, you better put that out there to the board if you're going to get my money here.
Okay.
Okay? You might. Our email is listed. You might say, "Hey, DJ."
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for being here. That is great. Okay, mock trials team. Are we here? You guys look serious. Come on now. I want to hear how we did. Is Sydney Spar and Parker Myers, is that right?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we do we started this about 4 years ago. We started going on these international competitions. So there's 3 of them: New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. They have teams from several different nations, including Hong Kong, China, South Korea, Ireland, Canada. All these fantastic nations come out and do this wonderful, gigantic mock trials competition. This year we decided to go to San Francisco, and it was our first time. Everybody who went on the trip, it was their first time going, of course, other than our coach, who had done it several times. I would say it was one of the, if not the most fantastic educational experience that we've received. It's a step above any sort of state competition in mock trials, since it is such a huge, gigantic competition.
Yeah, and it was especially a wonderful learning opportunity because, as Parker stated, none of us had ever been to one of these Empire mock trial competitions, and very few of us had actually been to the regionals competition. And so this was a great opportunity for us to gain a deeper understanding of how to actually perform a trial.
Yes, many of the people were sophomores. We even took two freshmen. So it was a fantastic learning experience for them because getting that experience in early to do and compete in regional mock trials and state mock trials and hopefully go to national mock trials, this is the thing that will get you there and will get you the experience to get you there. So, yeah.
How many teams go to something like that?
20.
Around 20 per competition.
Yeah, I think at San Francisco it was 25. I think it was 25 teams. Yeah.
Pretty big competition.
It is a pretty big competition because it's several different states. There are 2 Oregon teams that went, including us, and teams, as I said before, from all over the world. So,
How many rounds do you get a chance to participate?
it was
4 preliminary
No.
rounds.
four rounds of preliminary rounds, and then there's a single final round. Yes.
How long does one of those take?
A couple hours.
It's a couple hours?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit longer than, again, as our regional or state mock trials because the case that in the work that you put into it is so massive compared to regional or state. Just to give like a comparison, usually regional cases your affidavit, a witness affidavit, will usually be around 3-4 pages. This was 10 pages per witness and was smaller font, more stacked information. So it was a pretty huge, massive thing.
Yeah.
Of work.
Like he was a doctor, and so he was like specifically a cardiovascular doctor, and so I was his attorney for that, and so having to understand that, it took like 15 pages of deep, complex anatomy.
I learned too much about cardiomyopathy in that case, so yes, it was a lot of information, and again, it was only because when you first, as a freshman, when I first received my regionals case, I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. Then you get your San Francisco case, and you're like, and then you get your regional case the next year, and you're like, this is nothing. This is, especially compared to what I just did, this is nothing. So, yeah.
Wow. I'm just curious of one thing. Everybody has a separate case, or do you see the same case presented more than one time?
Yeah, so it's one case. Everybody.
Okay, so you get a really good idea of, hey, that was a good idea, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, so it's a super cool thing. So, yeah.
The first one that goes blank, because you get to see what other people do.
Exactly. Yes, of course.
Any questions? That's great stuff. That's great. I assume we're going back next year.
Yes, we actually are hoping to go to Chicago next year. They've actually moved the San Francisco one to Chicago this year. So.
Have you ever been to Chicago?
I have been to Chicago before. That was a vacation for my family.
Vacation?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take that. Great, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for presenting.
thank you.
Thanks for representing our school.
No problem.
Okay, superintendent's report. That's Mr. Aaron Bear.
Right, so 2 things. One in front of you, you have the CFS of Schools report. Go ahead and read through that on your downtime. Take that as a leisurely reading. And then if you have any questions, we'll address those at the March 16th workshop. And then DJ broke the seal saying Randy does not have the COVID virus. So last month already, the board workshop, we talked about coronavirus. Julie and I have weekly meetings, with CCPA, Clackamas County Public Health, Oregon Health Authority, Oregon Department of Education. Dr. President will be in our meeting tomorrow, so those are weekly. As you might have read, the OHA and ODE's most recent recommendation is to not close schools, to do everything you can to mitigate any loss of time while keeping schools open, and only close schools as a last resort. So since H1, anybody remember H1N1? Anybody suffer from that? You don't want to admit to it now, do you? But we've had a pandemic flu plan and our emergency operation plan. This has not reached the level of a pandemic, However, in the event that we did have to have a closure, we would make sure that those closures were as short as is possible. For example, let's say Sandy Grade School tomorrow had a confirmed case of the coronavirus. It's very possible that our custodial staff could get in and deep clean that building over the evening, and we could reopen the very next day. Now, determining and depending on how severe the case was, Hillsborough didn't close, they deep cleaned on a Sunday and they were back open on a Monday. So it's very possible that we could afford to not have to close school and pay some overtime to some of Laura's folks to get that work done. Now, as you recall, maybe you recall, we had 15 snow days at one point in time, and we were able to make it through 15 snow days. We used some creative scheduling to make sure that we made up those seat hours. Same thing we'd look to do in this case. A question was asked of me about salary and keeping people whole. We have contract language in both the classified and certified salaries that outline how we pay people. And unless and until there was some circumstance that took us outside and above the contract language, we wouldn't have to do anything really to make sure that people were whole. If indeed something came down and it was weeks to months in the county, the state shut us down, Ken Bucci, HR director, would meet with the bargaining chairs and we discuss how to move forward with that too.
Questions for them?
Yes, I have questions. Okay, so I had asked to be added onto the agenda the district's public relations campaign for the proposed bond measure. So where are you guys at on that?
Yeah, so Jeremy Wright is currently working on other bonds, and as we stated, once we have from him an outline of what it's going to cost, we'll get back to you.
Okay, and how much is the projected to be roughly at this point?
We have no projection from Jeremy at this point.
Okay. And is he taking us on as a client, or is he just working on other bonds and he's not going to be available?
Jeremy is committed to taking us on as a client.
Okay. And then also I asked about the district's plan to improve the public confidence in our leadership, specifically the money management. So what is our plan of action to help mitigate that?
Yeah, I think maybe you read it wrong. I did see an email from you that said 28% of people are dissatisfied. That was 28% of the people that didn't approve, which really makes it about 12% of the people. So we have all the confidence in the world in our business manager, and we have no intention to do anything to make people more confident in our money management.
Well, 12% doesn't sound like that big of a number until you realize that's an open response. So 12% of people came up with that response on their own. And we also have a situation where over 40% of people disagreed with the statement that the school was managing funds correctly, and they trusted the school district to manage the funds from the bond.
I believe when we were in that workshop, the words were used, when in that presentation, that we were right in line with other districts and where those results came out.
I also saw at the end of the report is making the implication that if we do not address this, we're not going to get the bond. That was the last.
Well, you're
That is not what
skewing
it
this
is.
with the survey that was done versus overall perception of all the district patrons. So I think that your remarks here and your numbers and the things and maybe what you're aiming at is inappropriate.
Well, the numbers come from the survey, and it's not inappropriate to ask
It's
questions.
a 12% disapproval that we mismanage money.
12% disapproved about the leadership. More was about the money. I forgot to bring the report tonight. And when you're talking about
And
12%
that
of people,
report
that's
was a
not on a multiple
suggestion.
choice question.
The
That's an
report
open
was a
response.
suggestion
Okay.
for campaign management,
We're gonna move forward with the agenda right now.
not a platform.
88% approved?
No, it's not a platform, but then we should add these things to the agenda. Because normally when people ask for things to be added to the agenda, the courteous thing to do, the common courtesy, is to add them to the agenda.
But it's still put in the preliminary.
This is an item.
I have a
that
motion to table this
administration
discussion and move forward to the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
So we move forward. Okay, moving on, let's see, where are we at here? No, I've lost my place. Classified staff update. Laura Kwame.
Let me first say thank you very much to the district for the effort and energy put forward on the money lunch spreads and other recognitions given to us as classified employees during the Classified Appreciation Week. We do appreciate that, thank you. Second thing that I need to bring up, of course, is on the issue of the coronavirus itself. I know the superintendent just spoke to that issue. We do have some concerns, especially, I've been receiving calls from membership. We appreciate the effort that the district has gone to in preempting and training our custodial staff and disinfecting our schools. First and foremost, our union, of course, is concerned for our members' health and safety. Additionally, we're concerned for their financial well-being. Classified employees are the district's most vulnerable financially. While we have already been in some discussion with the Human Resources Department, tomorrow the state office will issue a demand to bargain to all districts statewide. I'm sure that we will find a time to get together and really go through planning for the worst case scenario. We don't want to panic, but we want to be happen going forward. I think it's a reasonable thing to do at this time. We appreciate the good ongoing working relationship that we've had so far with district officers. Additionally, I'd also like to request a copy of the pandemic protocols that we have already established for district. Other than that, we are continuing to go location by location throughout district. We've got a few more left to go to. It's been very, very beneficial to membership, and I think to district, ironing out some small things that make a difference to personnel, and we can catch it early and be done with it. Other than that, we're going along, getting ready for conference this year, and of course, we have other issues going on, but it's working well. Any questions from the board at this time?
Yeah, I do. Laura, so am I correct in hearing you say that you guys, at this point, the custodial staff has not been given a copy of the pandemic protocols?
It isn't the custodial staff, it would be us.
Okay, and you guys haven't gotten that yet?
And we haven't. That's something that we should have been proactive in asking for before now. I know that there is additionally on our staff, we can go into our staff, I don't want to say login, and look at our disaster relief and that sort of thing. And I need to update myself on that also. But I think the pandemic protocol is separate. And I want to make sure that it's available to us and we have just a heads up.
No, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. We talked about that.
Yeah.
You go online and get it.
Okay, because I was looking on the district and I couldn't find it myself, so I totally get where you're coming on that.
Right.
You can get it, you can use the password.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I also just wanted to say, I was planning on saying this later, but I'll go ahead and I'll say it now, that I noticed in your guys' contract that you do not enjoy the same protection that the certified staff have. That I did notice that according to the temporary closure clause of the classified staff contract, when schools are closed to a catastrophic event, you can use accrued leave. I agree that that is not sufficient. If schools are closed for weeks at a time, I know that you guys wouldn't have enough accrued leave to make up for the hours you're missing.
Yeah, we bargain that,
And that's
bargain
something
that, we bargain that, you don't get to do that in
I
open
want to
session.
state my
not
support for
bargain
our
that.
employees.
We bargain that, not in open
I
session.
Move that we,
Well, no, you're
You
not,
bargain
no.
it.
I can
Close
speak,
this discussion
No.
immediately.
She
You
can
can't
give it
bargain
a
on
but it's
your
not
own.
gonna be up for
You can't
discussion.
bargain on your own.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm
that-
not
that
trying
is
to bargain
not-
on my own. I am stating my support for our staff. Our
Okay,
staff
a motion's
provide
been made to
essential
discontinue this discussion.
services. I do not want
Motion's
them
been
to be
seconded.
harmed by a situation that was caused and was outside of
all
their
those in
control.
favor?
I want you to
Aye.
be paid.
The discussion's over.
Ridiculous.
We can give her opinion, it's just not gonna be up to discussion. She just wants to always get the word out there.
She's not on the bargaining team.
I'm not on the bargaining team. I
You're out of line.
understand that.
You
I
are
appreciate
out
the
of line.
sentiment.
Out of line.
I appreciate the sentiment, I understand and hear your concern, and we will be addressing most of these issues. Like I said, the state is going to issue that demand to
I thought
bargain,
you were
and we'll
trying to
take care of
come
it.
on.
The school will protect its
What
employees.
happened-
We are
what happens-
very,
what happens
they are
years
very
ago
important
when
to
we had
us.
excessive amounts of skill days? What happened?
Well, exactly what
We
Mr.
paid you, right?
Barrett-
We paid you outside the contract, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And what happens is that the district does a pretty good job of maintaining and managing any overtures so far. We just, at this point, would like to have a little bit more clarity, and I think that we can
Understand,
accomplish that.
when it's an extraordinary event that's out of your control, we recognized it, we paid it,
Mhm.
and no one complained about it. In fact, people were very appreciative of it.
Exactly.
We do a bargaining process, it's in place for a very particular reason, because we exchange things in those rooms. Okay? So,
And like I
let's
said,
understand that
that's,
there's a process, and if we start giving things away in meetings, then the process is unreliable.
That's not gonna happen.
and that's where we're headed. And so thanks again for your concern, and we'll follow through with that process.
Laura, thank you very much. Thanks. Certified staff update. Megan Smith, Allison Connor, who's going up? Megan?
I'll do this. Okay, so we have a lot kind of going on. It's almost spring. Not quite. Looks like it outside though. It's kind of nice. So one thing that I am, the first thing I kind of want to mention actually has to do with kind of the city. But I noticed on social media that there is a program for the city for kids really to earn, I guess, sort of by us voting, a park that would be donated, basically funded by the NBA. So hopefully it's not out of turn to speak on it, but it's for the kids. It would be fantastic. I don't have the website in front of me, but it's on, I believe it's on the city webpage. But you can vote every day. All the way up until I think it's April 2nd. And then the more votes that we get, obviously the more likely we would be the ones to win. And so our kids would end up with a really awesome park that none of us have to pay for. So that'd be fantastic. And then after that, we've got OEA RA elections are finished up. The RA is still on as far as we know. It is going to be April 17th and 18th in Portland. And that's, for those of you who aren't aware of it, it's about 700 or 800 of us educators from around the state all get together and kind of start talking about policies and different things that we want to push for in the state and also throughout our membership. As far as here in our buildings, we've got teachers working on their mid-year check-in with goals. We've got SBAC preps for state testing going on. We also, like Laura said, and you guys also spoke to, definitely are aware of keeping buildings and classrooms and tables and things clean, and we're definitely following those district guidelines that have been set out as well. I think that's everything. So unless you guys have something else for me.
Any questions for Megan?
I do. I was really disappointed that this results of the teacher's survey about what you guys would like to see with the Student Success Act. I was disappointed that that wasn't something that was going to be shared.
Okay, that was their prerogative. You were told that.
And I also did not have any confidence that they were actually asked.
So you're calling the administration liars?
I'm asking if you were actually asked if the survey results could be shared.
Was I asked by who?
By Mr. Bear or Mr. Anderson?
I was asked if we would share them here at the board meeting, and I'm not going to do that.
Okay, that's fine. That's your choice.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay, consent agenda. Accept the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So hold on a second. Why is every single teacher's name on here? What's that about? I just don't understand what the process is for that.
Excuse me?
So, probationary license, 1 year to 2 year, 2 year to 3, and then like the license contract, and there's this list of all of the teachers. I just don't understand what that information is, what this is going on here.
Are you asking to move that outside of the consent agenda?
No, I'm just asking to understand what the information is. Like, I just am asking why all of the teachers' names are.
I don't believe all the teachers are in there. I think those are as stated.
Well, and
It's
then that's just
showing-
what I'm asking.
It's showing their advancement, that's all it is.
Okay.
By law, we have to do that.
Okay, so they're just, okay, all right.
It's a rolling contract. so it's a rolling.
Okay, motion's been made to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second? Okay, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. We don't have any action items tonight. We're going to move on to informational discussion items, a student investment account draft plan. Tim Werner, I saw you working on the computer. I know you got this hooked up and it's ready to rock, right?
Right, yes. Of course, I did last time as well.
And now you're wearing your lucky coffee
I
tie.
got my coffee tie on to caffeinate it
Just be
through.
forewarned.
So you're getting a hard copy of the presentation. I apologize, some of the slides are kind of dark. but it's the same information that you'll be seeing up here. Sometimes it takes a minute to get it done.
All right, so we don't want to, there we go.
So I'm going to share with you information on the student investment account that all districts are working on. This is kind of a general overview. This is not, this is just a draft. And this, there's a extensive, huge application that districts have to put together for this money. This is getting at to the heart of how are we going to be spending the money. But I want to first start with kind of an overview to kind of frame the student investment account. So as you recall, the state of Oregon passed the Student Success Act. And so I kind of want to specifically separate out Student Success Act from the student investment account. So there's three parts to the overall act. There's a student investment account, which is 50% of the money. The early learning account, which is 20% of the money. And then 30% is other statewide initiatives. So the portion that we're talking about and that districts get to spend is that 50%, which is the student investment account. So the Success Act passed a business tax. The state's going to collect those taxes and then divide up those money into those different accounts. So what the districts are working on is the student investment account. And so this is what we get. So our portion tentatively, what the state is saying is it's based on your average daily membership, your weighted membership. So our share of that is going to be around, if they give us the funds, they're saying right now it's going to be around $3.4 million. So the new money has two purposes outlined by the state. The first is to help meet students' mental and behavioral health needs. And the second is to focus on increasing academic achievement, particularly reducing those achievement gaps for students of color, students with disabilities, emerging bilinguals, or EL students, English learners, and students navigating poverty. So it gave you, each district, 4 allowable investment areas. So class size reduction, health and safety, well-rounded education, and instructional time. So with these, this is when we did kind of a community engagement. So we sent out a district-wide survey. We took that survey, and even though it was sent out and you could access it in Spanish for Spanish-speaking families, we actually took hard copies of the survey that we translated in Spanish, and we had those handed out at our elementary English learner family nights, because we wanted to, part of this is we want to make sure we're getting underrepresented community input on how to spend this money. We went to a migrant parent night, discussed it with the Superintendent's Leadership Council, district-wide PTC volunteer meeting, Chamber of Commerce Education Committee, labor management groups. And so we kind of consolidated all of those, that input. And by the font size, you can see kind of the priorities that all of that information was put into: class size reduction, health and safety, well-rounded education, and a little bit in instructional time. So as you're going to see, when we look at our spending, we're going to heavily focus on those priority areas, but also there is actually money spent in each of those categories. So the first thing the state has the district do is identify general broad outcomes that they're hoping to achieve. So one of them is increasing overall student achievement while reducing the achievement gaps. Improve school climate through greater access, student access to health, behavioral, social, emotional, and academic supports. Consistent, effective, and equitable teaching practices across the schools. And create more flexible, responsive, engaged, and differentiated learning experiences. So those are kind of the broad outcomes. Then what the state has to do is kind of identify what are some strategies that you're going to do to help get those outcomes. So I'll go over some of the strategies, and then the next step is, okay, what specific activities are you going to do to hit those strategies to help with these outcomes? So strategy one, we want to lower class sizes in highest need areas, and when we get to the activities, we'll kind of pinpoint how we're going to do that. Strategy two, we want to increase student access to some more supports, whether it's health supports, counseling supports, social, emotional, academic supports. Increase instructional and curriculum supports for staff. Increase student access to programs and activities. The more that they can be connected to those, the more we can connect them to school and to their academics. We want to increase student access to technology and software to provide greater differentiation in academic supports. And improve district and school communication and engagement with families from our Spanish-speaking community. That was really one thing that came through in those kind of meetings is we're looking to have hire bilingual staff members and to be able to make sure that they can have somebody in the building to connect with and access with. So we kind of address some of that in their activities as well. So this is an example of one piece of the chart that they're going to have us. You can't really read this, but this is just, they want it to show, here's your outcomes, here's your strategies, and how do your strategies connect to those certain outcomes. So looking at the activities, so this gets into kind of the, how are we going to be spending the money? So we've identified hiring 5.5 FTE. So FTE stands for full-time equivalent. So that's a full-time person, staff member. 5.5 middle school teachers and 2 elementary teachers based on enrollment numbers. So we've talked previously how our middle school class sizes are really high. So we're going to go about that in a way that we can, essentially we're going to try to lower core class sizes in the middle school. We're kind of aiming for a 20% reduction. So where we have 40 kids in a class, we're going to try to shoot for 32 kids in a class. We're getting creative with the middle school principals. I don't see any here tonight, but by looking at a way to increase our health and PE minutes and adding a section to every core class. So it's going to involve an arrangement of the schedule, but in doing so, we're going to be able to provide not only smaller class sizes in every core class, but we're going to be able to provide more social emotional supports in health class, increase PE minutes for students, and increase some support, academic supports, and elective programs a little bit. So doing it in a way where we can hit almost everything by identifying some target areas to hire positions at. So that's one activity. Special education, that's also an area we're also looking to increase support for our students. Hire 2.2 FTE elementary special education teachers, 1 special education SLP, that's speech language pathologist, and an additional school psychologist for the district.
Would that be a shared position?
Yeah, multiple schools. Increase elementary counseling, 1.4 FTE, so that we have a full-time counselor or a licensed social worker in each elementary building. We've kind of temporarily done that this year, but this will provide to make sure that there's a full-time counselor in every building in the district. In part of the well-rounded, increase elementary PE staff and minutes for the students. So, increasing the kind of well-rounded activities at the elementary level, this also will allow us to increase the PE minutes to get closer to what the state is recommending for PE minutes at the elementary level. Add another school nurse so that we can provide more health supports district-wide. Currently, we have one school nurse who's not quite full-time. So we hope to make that nurse full-time and then add another school nurse with that, as well as provide some secondary drug and alcohol counseling services for students who need those. Adding an additional day in the teacher contract identified for professional development. This would be a full day. It wouldn't impact student contact days. It would just be an additional day. One of the things that the need that came out was we have some early release time built in for professional development, but sometimes you get a full day in August, but it would be nice to have one later in the school year to be able to connect all the things that you're doing for a full day rather than just an hour or two after school. Classified bilingual communication specialist. So this is somebody that would work at a district level to be able to connect families to the schools if we don't have anyone who can speak Spanish in that community, who can also help with some family engagement activities, reaching out to those communities. Very key position that we think will be very helpful to our families. Teaching and learning support coordinator and instructional coach. So our goal is to increase instructional coaching for teachers and also to support some administrators, to really zero in on our ELL services, provide more support and resources for our EL students and our staffs who are working with those students, and helping to implement all of this student investment account information and all these projects. Increase access to before or after school programs activities. Again, this is still in the general stage where I'm in the process of kind of researching cost of those kind of things, of what that could look like, whether it's access and reducing fees so there's no barriers for our current activities, as well as looking to add some other elementary after school program supports. So we're in the middle of researching that.
What kind of, I'm just curious, what thoughts were you on the elementary school? What would be additional?
Currently, we're like one of the programs that is done in other districts is called Champions, where it's an after-school program, and they come in and they do different activities around STEM, science, technology, math, just all those kind of things. They bring in some art. They have some curriculum they do, and they work with students after school. One of the things that I enjoy about them is they will also not only bring in their staff, but they'll look to hire classified staff within the district who may not be full-time, because they want to really connect those after-school programs to the school. And if a student sees somebody who works in their building who is also part of that after-school program, I can really help with that connection, not only to the school, but also to what's going on as far as academics in the school. We're looking at something like that. When we add staff, and if we add an elementary classroom, we need furniture, technology, equipment for those additional staff members. So we put in some funds to also pay for that. I appreciate Mr. Coleman's work on identifying what those new positions and those pieces would be, so we can outline those costs. And then adding technology equipment and curriculum software supports for teachers and students. Whether it's Chromebooks, Ingenuity Online, or some softwares, we're looking into researching some of those additional supports to help better teach the standards that we're doing, and also provide student access to technology. we've tried to do as we incorporate this is that we looked at staff, teacher input, we looked at parent input, and we looked at student input. So we gave the surveys, we had students, secondary students take them in their advisory courses, so we got a lot of input from students as well as, from parents and staff members. One of the things the students came out high was access to technology. That was one of their priorities. We're also looking at the bus safety monitor to kind of help with and assist some key bus routes. It would be a district-wide position that could kind of go and help with transportation with individual bus routes that may be having some difficulties. So if you kind of, and again, this is a draft, if we add up these areas, you can kind of see between the roughly the 3.4 million, again, this isn't all added up, but this is kind of some general of where we would spend that money in each of those different areas. So next steps, I'm going to continue to go through the entire application process. There's a lot of narratives that apparently ODE is going to spend a lot of money hiring people to read all these narratives. Whenever you see an application and the guide to filling it out is 8 pages long, you know you're in trouble because that's going to be quite a process. But so as I complete that, we kind of fine tune some of the budget details. So probably by the April board meeting, we'll come back and have you look at the entire application, and we'll look for you to approve it then. We'll probably get that into your hands before the April board meeting, so you can take a look at it. But if you feel free to send me or Aaron any information, feedback as you kind of look through these things that we're doing it. But we tried to be very deliberate on how we spent the money based on community engagement and feedback that we got. Yes, questions?
So, and I know that I think everybody saw what happened with the stock market today. So what years are already funded for this?
Right now, this is, it's a tax revenue that they're going to be collecting yearly. So this budget amount is for 1 year next year.
So this would be based on a projection of us getting 3.4 next year?
Yes,
Okay.
That's about what we're going to get, and then the expectation is they maintain that funding.
Okay, so they would maintain it just based on the percentage, so if things didn't go on a good path, that could go down? Or they would maintain it 3.4?
Right, like with any state funding, like our entire general fund comes from the state. So what they set the general fund in the 2-year biennium, and maybe Mr. Bellinger, the business director, has had.
But just to clarify, so they've started collecting the taxes this year, so the advantage is that there's a little bit of a buffer, not knowing what a whole year is gonna be next year, to at least get us is maximized to getting through the first year as they've said. But you're right, we don't know until we know. And this is brand new, and they're still vetting through the administrative regulations on who exactly is subject, not subject to it. So they've required that we make a plan to commit 100% of the resources provided in the estimate to us. And then they've said that you need to prioritize those and be willing to pare down. They have not been committed as to what the time frame is that they would tell us if things do need to be pared down. And my anticipation is that they will be, they will attempt to hold the first year as solid as they possibly can, and would try to push the right sizing into the following year. Again, knowing that they've got part of this year that they started, that we're not spending anything to help buffer that.
Okay, okay.
Well, and added to that, the quick closure of this legislative session, there were technical fixes that were in there that got caught up in that and never got resolved, which added, I think, a little more uncertainty to the revenue collection. So
And then, so Tim, I just want to repeat back to make sure I heard this right. So then you're going to give a more detailed about what the draft activities end up looking like, and that's going to be in the packet to look at before next time?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Although barring anything, I don't expect anything really different from those activities other than maybe a little more zero-day focus.
Yeah.
The other thing we'll do, so an example, some of that I'm going to try to be a little bit nuanced with because, so for example, the drug and alcohol counseling services. I could put in there one FTE counselor, drug and alcohol counselor, but if we're not able to go out and hire, I don't want to go back and rewrite the entire plan. So we then extend contracts to counseling services that still, if the state approves it, we can still do that without having to rewrite the plan. Because the other thing we're going to keep in mind is 197 school districts have all this money, and we're going to be adding all of this support for students across the state. So we're going to be trying to fight for those same employees that are out there looking. And so we want to be able to have some contingencies to where if we don't get certain things, we can still use the money for services.
So for the elementary special ed, are those going to be going to specific schools? Have you identified, are those going to be behavioral, like self-contained classrooms, or just like, are those people been allocated yet, or?
They haven't been specifically allocated. What we're looking at is, right now we have the learning specialists. We're looking at their caseload numbers. Many of them at the elementary level go to multiple schools. So the goal is we're trying to kind of beef it up to where we can have a learning specialist in each building full-time.
Oh. I think that was pretty genius too, the PE idea. That was a pretty good idea.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Jim? That was a very good presentation. Thank you very much. That was great. Thanks. Okay, citizens agenda. I have one card, Nicole O'Neill.
It's okay, I said what I needed to say, I don't need to speak.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Okay, announcements, and I just want to say, before I make the announcements, I don't think anyone needs to panic at this point over COVID-19. So whoever's got the semi out there loaded with toilet paper, can you pull it up?
That's Amazon.
Oh, that's Amazon, never mind. Yeah, we've all seen what's going on at Costco, I guess. All right, announcements, March 12th, OTA board meeting, 5:30, located at OTA school. March 16th, that's next Monday, everybody. We're gonna have a board meeting here. We're gonna be working a workshop with OSBA on superintendent evaluation. And afterwards, if we have any questions about.
And we'll be adding safe.
Yes, yeah, Cedar Ridge and Sandy Grace Go Safe School Routes Plan, which is give you a chance. You got a week. You got 52 pages to kind of go through there. So get a chance to look at that so we can have that conversation.
Hey DJ, I just want you to note the location is actually going to be in the Sandy High School library.
Oh,
we couldn't
thank
get this
you.
room on that notice.
Okay, so we're going to be in the library.
Downstairs, yeah.
Monday?
Monday,
6:30.
correct, at the board workshop, Monday, library. 6:30, yes. If we're all kind of adjusted to daylight savings time, okay? And then March 30th, we got a busy month going here. We have the board budget committee workshop, which the Mr. Rogers' budget is going to explain to us how it works. That would you be Tim, who does a great job. Yeah, if you've never been to his presentation on that and you want to know how a budget works, you should be there. So that's March 30th, and that will be here in the lecture room at 6 o'clock. That's a 6 o'clock one, a little earlier. And then April 13th, our next school board meeting here at 7 p.m. We have no need for.
Yes, we would talk about some negotiations.
Okay, so we were going to recess for 5 minutes, and we're going to go into an executive session. Personnel, ORS 192.660, subsection 2A. This meeting is adjourned.